For people listening in who haven't read it, it's a novella. It was published in 1899.
Right.
And it's considered a classic.
Absolutely.
And we're going to unpack it. Just want to talk about what happens in it. All those deeper layers, the symbols and stuff.
Yeah.
The history behind it. What kinds of questions does it make us ask?
This book works on so many levels. You know, on the one hand, you have this adventure story in the Congo.
Right.
But it also shines this light on colonialism.
Yeah.
And it really takes us on this psychological journey with the characters.
It's got a really good setup, too.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't just drop us right into the jungle. You know, we start on the River Thames, a group of guys on a yawl. I think it's called the Nelly.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for the tide to turn. Seems pretty peaceful, right?
Yeah, at first.
And then we get this line from Marlow, our narrator, and this also has been one of the dark places of the earth.
Whoa, talk about setting the tone right away. We think of darkness as being somewhere else, uncivilized. But he's saying that the Thames, the heart of the British Empire, has a darkness too.
It makes you think about Conrad's own life.
Yeah.
He wasn't just some writer making stuff up.
Right.
He was a sailor. He had actually been to the Congo, and you can feel his experiences woven into the story.
Yeah, so when Marlow says that line, it's like he's reflecting on some darkness he brought back with him.
Yeah, like he's looking back on everything and realizes the seeds of darkness were right there in civilization.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Marlow's journey.
He gets hired by a Belgian trading company to captain a steamboat up the Congo River. And you immediately run into these themes of colonialism, imperialism.
Right, and Conrad doesn't shy away from how awful it was. You know, this company, they're all about the money.
Yeah.
They don't care about the native people at all.
Nope.
It's brutal.
It's chilling how he describes it. When Marlow sees this chain gang, these native laborers, talks about their complete death-like indifference. It's like they've lost their spirit, you know?
It's crushed by colonialism.
Exactly.
And you can't forget the history of the Congo Free State, King Leopold II of Belgium.
Yes.
This was his own personal colony. Forced labor, disease, murder, millions of people died.
It's like the book's not just fiction. It's reflecting this awful truth.
Right.
And right in the middle of all this, Conrad throws in Mr. Kurtz, this super smart ivory trader, deep in the Congo, gone rogue. People talk about him in whispers, like he's some kind of legend, with admiration, but also fear.
It's like, is he a genius or a madman?
Exactly.
You don't really know.
No.
As Marlow gets closer to meeting him.
Conrad is so good at building the anticipation. Kurtz becomes a symbol of how complicated people are. How even really smart people can be twisted by power.
And he doesn't give you all the answers. You have to wrestle with these contradictions.
Yeah, these unanswered questions.
Yeah, and then there's the setting, the Congo wilderness.
You can feel that oppressive heat and how dense the jungle is.
And how powerful nature is. You know, it's indifferent to all these human struggles.
The wilderness isn't just like a backdrop. It's like another character. It affects everyone.
Especially Marlow and Kurtz. Like the isolation and disease, all the violence.
It just wears them down.
Yeah, it's like a pressure cooker.
Right.
It amplifies the darkness that's already inside them.
Yeah. And then we get to the big moment, when Marlow finally meets Kurtz.
Okay.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Marlow finds Kurtz's station deep in the jungle. He's surrounded by ivory.
Right.
And he's totally lost his mind.
It's horrifying, but also kind of captivating.
Yeah, and then his last words.
Horror. The horror.
What do you think those mean?
Yeah, I mean, what are they about?
Is he talking about the horrible things he's seen? About humanity itself?
I think it's probably all of that. It's more than just that, you know?
Yeah.
I think Kurtz sees through the illusion of civilization.
Okay.
Like he glimpses something terrifying underneath it all.
And he can only express it as the horror.
Exactly.
What's so interesting is that Kurtz seems to get this moment of clarity.
Oh, yeah.
Right at the end. He sees how awful he's been, how pointless his ambition was, and all the damage he caused. And he's overwhelmed by it.
But there's still this ambiguity. Like, is he really sorry? Or is he just freaked out because everything fell apart?
Good question.
Is he judging himself? Or is he judging humanity as a whole?
Right.
Does he represent the worst of humanity? Or is he a reflection of the darkness we all have inside us?
That's the genius of Conrad. He doesn't give us easy answers.
Just throws us into this world where you can't tell the difference between good and evil, or civilized and savage.
It's all blurred together.
It's like he's saying darkness, it was in all of us.
Not just in individuals, but in the whole colonial project.
Exactly.
Like those company officials,
Yeah.
the so-called pilgrims,
Mhm.
they're all trapped in this system, exploits and dehumanizes the natives.
Right.
Maybe they started out with good intention, but the ivory, the power, it corrupts them.
Like the manager.
Oh, yeah.
He's all about order and efficiency.
But underneath it all, he doesn't care about the suffering.
No, he's indifferent to it.
And his uncle,
Right, the one leading the El Dorado exploring expedition.
he's just pure greed.
Yeah, no hiding it.
And even that young brickmaker,
Yeah.
he sees Kurtz as a rival.
Yeah.
He's full of envy, suspicion. He'd do anything to get ahead. The brickmaker is interesting because he shows the hypocrisy of colonialism.
But it's just a cover.
He just wants to exploit the Congo
Yeah.
for profit.
And then you have Kurtz, who's completely surrendered to the darkness.
What I find striking about Kurtz
Yeah.
is how he embodies both the best and worst of humanity. Smart,
Right?
charismatic, he
Yeah.
can be incredibly eloquent,
Yeah.
but he's also capable of terrible cruelty.
Right, and his descent into madness is so gradual.
It's like the wilderness is slowly stripping away his civilized facade,
Yeah.
revealing these primal instincts underneath.
Right, like he's possessed by the wilderness,
Yeah.
consumed by its power.
Remember those heads on stakes? That's not just brutality, it's a
No.
symbol of how completely he's given himself over to the darkness.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
That we could be seduced by power so easily
Yeah.
and lose ourselves in the darkness.
But there's also something magnetic about Kurtz. He may be a monster, but he's captivating. He represents the allure of the forbidden,
Right.
the seductive power of the unknown.
He's not afraid to look into the abyss.
No, he embraces it.
Remember that line? The wilderness had patted him on the head, and behold, it was like a ball, an ivory ball.
Wow, yeah.
It's like he's merged with the forces of nature.
But in a terrible way. That's
Right.
what makes him so dangerous. He's not just a brutal tyrant. He's a kind of visionary prophet of the darkness.
Yeah.
He's seen things most people can't even imagine.
Yeah, and it changed him.
Completely.
But even in his madness, there's this glimmer of something more. Like those last words, the horror. The horror,
Yeah.
they suggest some kind of awareness.
Like, he sees what he's done,
Sees the emptiness, the consequences.
and he's horrified.
But there's power in it too. Like he's defying the darkness.
Even as it consumes him,
And that's what makes Heart of Darkness so profound.
it's like a reminder that civilization is fragile.
Right.
And that wilderness, that primal force,
Yeah.
is always lurking beneath the surface.
Waiting to reclaim us.
And
Yeah.
the question is, do we fight it?
Or do we surrender?
That's the choice Conrad leaves us with. And it's a choice we have to make again and again.
Throughout our lives. One thing's for sure, after exploring Heart of Darkness like this, you'll never see the world the same way again.
Absolutely not.
It stays with you, pushes you to look deeper
Question your assumptions.
and face those hard truths. What about Marlow's decision to lie to Kurtz's intended?
Oh, yeah.
He goes back to Europe
Hmm.
and visits her.
Right.
And instead of telling her the truth about Kurtz,
Yeah.
he makes him sound like a hero.
That lie is such a fascinating part of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, you understand why he did it.
Yeah.
He wants to protect her from the pain of the truth, to preserve her image of Kurtz.
But it also keeps the myth of Kurtz alive, the myth of the noble colonizer.
Right.
It lets the darkness stay hidden.
It raises questions about truth itself.
Yeah, like, is it always better to know?
Even if it hurts.
Yeah.
Or is it sometimes better to shield people? It challenges us to think critically,
Yeah.
to question what we believe, and to deal with the fact that life is complicated.
Yeah, morally ambiguous.
And it reminds us that the heart of darkness
Yeah.
isn't some far-off place.
Right.
It's inside all of us.
It's something we all have to deal with
A shadow self we need to be aware of.
and fight to control. So after this deep dive into Heart of Darkness, I'm left with more questions than answers.
I think that's the point. It's that power, yeah, it just makes you think about it long after you're done reading it.
It makes you question stuff.
Absolutely, those uncomfortable truths.
Right in the heart of what it means to be human.
It's reminding us that the heart of darkness, it's not some far-off place. It's inside all of us
It's a potential
that we all carry.
that we all have to face
The shadow self, we need to recognize that.
and try to control. And it's a journey we all have to take.
In one way or another.
And it doesn't end when you close the book. In a world where colonialism is still a thing.
I think what Heart of Darkness tells us is that the darkness is always there, inside and out.
Right.
We can't escape it.
So what can we do?
We can choose how we respond.
Right, like what are our options?
Well, we can give in
to our worst instincts.
Yeah, that desire for power, or we fight for what's right. Try to build a better world.
A more just world.
A more compassionate world.
It's a choice. And Heart of Darkness shows us how important that choice is.
Yeah, the stakes are high.
It might be over 100 years old.
More than that.
But it's still so relevant.
Maybe even more relevant now.
So if you want a book that'll really challenge you and stick with you, read Heart of Darkness.
You won't forget it.
Maybe you'll even come out of the darkness, appreciating the light even more.
That'd be something.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been great.
We'll be back soon with another one.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep searching for the truth.
Wherever it leads.
See you next time.